Okay, Healy, look alive. No, where are you going? Healy, come here. Hi there, I'm Safina and I'm here with Healy to give you our 10 tips to get you started backpacking with your dog. Oh, these are good pulls. Okay, tip number 1, pick a trail and understand the terrain. So first of all, not all places allow dogs. For instance, most national parks don't allow dogs on the trail. So you want to make sure wherever you want to go backpacking that they allow dogs. Pick a trail that's reasonable for you and your dog in terms of distance and elevation gain. Remember, you'll be carrying 15 to 30 pounds on your back, so you'll be moving much slower and you'll get tired much quicker. You also need to understand what type of terrain your trail is going to be. Is it rocky, and is that going to be rough on your pup's paws? Or are there going to be rock scrambles that your dog isn't going to be able to navigate by themselves? If you're concerned about the terrain on your route, you might want to consider a different route or check the route out beforehand to make sure that your dog will be able to handle it during your backpacking trip. Tip number 2 is understand the water situation. Are there going to be any water crossings that are going to be difficult for your dog, so like a river or a stream? Is there going to be water along the route that your dog can drink from, or are you going to need to bring all of the water with you? You might be wondering, do I need to purify or filter the water that my dog drinks? And we got you covered. So coming out soon, we're going to have a video on whether or not you need to purify the water that your dog drinks, why you need to purify your water, and then some kind of tips and tricks on keeping you and your doggo safe from waterborne pathogens. So subscribe to get a notification of when that video comes out. Tip number 3 is train for the trail. So just like you would train for any physical activity that you're going to do, and probably training for this backpacking trip, you want to train your dog as well. So you can do day hikes to get them ready, get their paws kind of toughened up. You want to pick hikes that are going to be similar in terrain, similar in distance, and similar in elevation gain. Don't forget to train for the hike out as well. So if you're hiking in 8 miles, staying one night, and then hiking out the next day, the same 8 miles, then you'll want to make sure when you're training with your dog that you hike with them 8 miles one day and then 8 miles again the next day. Tip number 4, prepare for the weather. Is it going to be cold? Does your dog need a jacket? And that's really kind of gonna depend on your dog, right? If you have a husky, probably not. If you have a California girl dog like mine, then yeah, you'll definitely need a jacket. So kind of gauge that depending on how your dog is. On the flip side of that, is it gonna be too hot? If it is, then you wanna make sure that your trail has some shade so that your dog can get some relief, and make sure that you watch your dog and make sure they're taking enough rest, drinking enough water, and not overheating. And then one of the other major things is it gonna rain? So if it's gonna rain, then you'll wanna make sure that you bring a towel, because nobody wants a wet dog in their tent. So honestly, if it was gonna rain, I probably wouldn't even bring my dog. But whatever weather is going to be occurring during your trip, you just want to make sure that you are aware of it and you are prepared for it. Tip number 5 is to acclimate your dog to its gear. So we've already talked about some gear that your dog might need, a jacket if it's cold, booties if the terrain is really rocky, which we had to get Healy some booties because if you've seen her first backpacking trip, she hurt her paw and we had to MacGyver a bootie out of Eric's camping shoes. So we got her booties and now she's good to go. You can also have them wear their own pack so that they can carry whatever other gear that you think they need, or their food as well. But whatever gear that you decide they need, you want to make sure that they get used to it before you take them out on the backpacking trail. So for instance, with Healy's booties, I had her wear her booties around the house for a week, and then on the weekend I took her out for a short hike, and then I've taken her out for a couple of other hikes since then, and she's getting used to them, but she's not quite a fan yet. So we have a little bit of work to do before she's ready to get out on the trail in her booties. Beyond their own gear, you also want to make sure that they're going to be comfortable getting in and out of your tent, because you don't want to get to your campsite, have everything set up, and then your dog doesn't want to get inside the tent. So just set up the tent at home, have them come lay inside of it with you, go in and out of it, so that it's not a brand new experience when you're out on the trail. Tip number 6 is to understand the flora and fauna. So this is going to be the plants and the animals of the area that you're going to. So you want to be mindful of especially the big predators. So I've been camping in Colorado and California a lot, and there are bear, moose, mountain lions. And so you just want to make sure that you're prepared and understand what to do if you encounter any of these animals. And honestly, when I'm in moose country, I never let my dog off leash, just because moose are really aggressive towards dogs, and I wouldn't want my dog to kind of encounter a moose without being on the leash. Beyond the large animals, you also need to think about the smaller animals and the bugs. So rodents, ticks, fleas, these can all harbor disease-causing bacteria and viruses. So you want to make sure that your dog is up to date in their vaccinations and also on a flea and tick prevention medication. You also want to be aware of any poisonous plants that might be in the area, such as poison ivy or poison oak, and know how to identify them. There's no greater way to ruin a backpacking trip than trudging through some poison ivy. So the next 2 tips that we have are going to be focused around training, and this is something that I've come to appreciate a lot more with Healy. So our last dog, Midas, he was extremely well behaved, super friendly to other dogs, but Healy, on the other hand, is still in training, needs to be socialized a little bit more, has some aggressive tendencies, and so it has changed the way we think about encountering dogs while on the trail. So tip number 7 is having some training treats. Since we are still training Healy and we're still socializing her, we always make sure to bring training treats whenever we go hiking or backpacking, so that when we're on the trail, we can positively reinforce all of the training that we're doing at home. So for instance, she has a tendency to pull towards other dogs while they're passing, and on the trail, there's not usually a lot of room to get off the trail, but we do our best. So we step to the side, distract her with a treat. We show her that we have a treat, tell her to leave it as the dog walks by, and if she does a good job, then she's rewarded with a treat. So having training treats on the trail really helps to ease some of that stress that we have about other dogs on the trail, but that training really has to start at home and not when you go hiking. Tip number 8 is work on recall. Everybody wants to have their dog off leash while they're backpacking, but not all dogs are ready to be trusted off leash. Make sure you have good recall with your dog, or it could get itself into dangerous situations with other dogs on the trail or wild animals like moose, which are really aggressive towards dogs. As a dog owner who is still socializing my dog, it's really stressful when we're on trail and people have their dog off leash, but they don't have any recall. So the dog comes running up, gets into Healy's face, and Healy does not like that. So, just because your dog is friendly doesn't mean that all dogs are friendly, and you need to be mindful of that. So please make sure that you work on recall if you're going to have your dog off leash. If you do have good recall and you're going to let your dog off leash, you just want to make sure that you can see well in front of them, so that if there are any people or wild animals coming up, you can call them back. I've heard stories on the trail where people themselves round the corner and surprise bears. So you don't want that to happen to your dog and have them be in this dangerous situation. All right, last 2 tips. Tip number 9, easy peasy, bring a first aid kit. So of course you need a first aid kit for you, and a lot of the things in your first aid kit will work for your dog as well, but you want to make sure that if you need anything for your dog, like medications that they're on. So in my first aid kit, for instance, I have a tick remover, which works good for myself and for my dog. Bandages, so not only band-aids, but the actual bandages that you can wrap yourself or your dog's paw with, gauze, tweezers in case one of us gets like a splinter or something, wipes to clean out wounds, and Neosporin. I have other things in there, but those are kind of the top things that come to my mind when I'm thinking about what could happen to Healy and what I would need to kind of take care of her in those situations. And the last tip number 10, is just be a good dog owner. Hiking with your dog is a privilege and not a right, and I've seen it taken away many places because there's too many incidents of bad owners letting their dogs do things that they're not supposed to be doing. So if you're not allowed to have your dog off leash, for instance, then don't have your dog off leash. Don't let your dogs chase the wild animals, and be respectful of other people on the trail, other dogs on the trail, so that we can all continue hiking and backpacking with our dogs. So those are the 10 tips to get started backpacking with your dog. And if you have any tips that you would like to share, please share them below in the comments so that we can all learn from each other. Until next time, I'll see you on the trail.